Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargava. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. With the ongoing Enforcement Directorate raids on Vivo, the Chinese smartphone maker, as also action being initiated against all those who help Chinese companies and Chinese nationals in violating the Indian law. With this action going on, the investigation agencies are now in full throttle mode against them. It is the Galwan clash with China and its continued standoff and military belligerence that compelled India to take action against Chinese business interests in India which were violating the local laws and to come down heavily on them. Hundreds of Chinese apps and businesses were banned. The government announced that any investment by a Chinese investor in India will need prior approval and security clearance. Then Huawei was banned from participating in 5G telecom tenders, and Indian companies with Chinese ownership were all put under the scanner by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to be followed by a probe by the Income Tax Department, by the ED and by the CBI, as would be warranted and needed on a case-to-case basis depending on what kind of crimes and violations they committed. Under the investigation, hundreds of Chinese companies were found by the MCA to have been illegally formed in India, with profits of their clandestine activities being secretly remitted to China. Their operations were shut down, and their consultants who helped them to set up such companies through forged documents, bogus identities, and fake addresses are being prosecuted by the various authorities. The Income Tax Department thereafter conducted raids on Chinese companies like Xiaomi, Vivo, etc., as also on their distributors in December 2021, and the department claims to have unearthed tax evasion of over 6,500 crore rupees during such raids. It blocked the bank accounts of Vivo for reasons of tax evasion, and incidentally, the Income Tax Department says that there was utter non-cooperation by the Vivo executives during the probe that took place. The tax department then raided Huawei in February 2022 and says that it found huge manipulation in its books of accounts in order to evade Indian taxes. The Enforcement Directorate, armed with such incriminating findings of the Income Tax Department, then raided Xiaomi in April this year and is said to have unearthed money laundering of rupees 5,500 crores by it, a charge that Xiaomi flatly denies. The ongoing Enforcement Directorate raids on Vivo are for similar reasons. After the IT raid on Vivo in December last year, based on the seized documents, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs began a probe into Vivo and in its affiliate companies, one of which was found to have been incorporated using bogus and forged documents certified shockingly by chartered accountants who knew them to be false. The company was formed by two Chinese nationals with bogus identity papers and without security clearance, and it has been the distributor of Vivo products for Jammu and Kashmir since its formation. The Registrar of Companies Delhi, upon finding such forgery and false certification etc., filed an FIR with the EOW Delhi Police, which in turn alerted the ED. The ED thus raided Vivo and its affiliate companies at 44 locations across India, and it says that it has unearthed and found money laundering and illegal overseas remittances of over 60,000 crore rupees through shell companies. It also found financial manipulation, it found tax evasion, and it also found illegal overseas remittance to Chinese companies by Vivo under the garb of payment of royalty, software, and other bogus payments. Several directors of Vivo are reported to have fled from India for fear of investigation. Further, some Vivo companies are found to have been using a fake address, which happens to be a government office building and also the house of a senior bureaucrat. Those were the kind of flagrant violations and forgeries that were committed by this Vivo company. The ED is reported to have blocked 119 bank accounts linked to Vivo India's activities, which were said to be holding 465 crore rupees. It has also blocked cash of 73 lakhs and 2 kilos of gold bars, as part of its ongoing probe into money laundering by Vivo. Vivo, which happens to be among the top 5 smartphone sellers in India, said that it is committed to be compliant with the Indian laws and that it is cooperating with the authorities in order to provide the required information. And alarmed China said that it hopes that the probe is fair and that India will abide by the laws as they carry out investigation and enforcement activities against the Chinese companies. China hoped that India will provide a truly fair, just, and non-discriminating business environment for Chinese companies operating in India. Its embassy in India further warned that frequent investigations by Indian authorities into Chinese enterprises chill the confidence and willingness of market entities from other countries, including those from China, to invest in India. It said that the Chinese government has always asked Chinese companies to comply with local laws and regulations in their overseas operations and that it will support Chinese companies to maintain their legitimate rights and interests. China's sharp reaction will do little to deter India, which will continue its probes and actions against Chinese companies operating in India and violating the domestic laws and regulations. While China's reactions threaten to open another front in India-China bitter relationship, the ET interestingly reports that of the 382 proposals received from Chinese investors since the restrictions were imposed on them, the government has approved 80 FDI proposals from Chinese investors till June 2022. It is not clear from this report whether the rest of the proposals have been rejected, and neither is it clear what was the quantum of investment involved in those 80 proposals which have been approved by the Government of India. From the Galwan incident in June 2020 till mid-2021, no Chinese investment proposal had been approved by the government. The industry experts say that the applications getting approved at present are those for acquisition of a minority stake in companies with no change in the company management or control, and also those in capital investment manufacturing sectors which India certainly needs. The government is said to be going slow on approval of investment proposals from Chinese investors in the Indian e-commerce and financial services sector, where numerous frauds have taken place. These are a no-no for them at the moment. The applications of Chinese investors with close ties to the ruling regime in Beijing too are on a go-slow mode by the Government of India. While the action against Vivo continues and the ED is still in hot pursuit in this case, let us see the larger picture in this matter. The first issue is that it is China which is solely responsible for its reckless and frictionful diplomacy and relationship with India and with many other nations, and India is bound to do what it thinks is best in its national interests. And India is not the only nation to do so. The US and many EU countries and now even African nations are taking action against Chinese companies for their illegal activities in their respective countries. The second, India is acting as per its rule of law, unlike China, which does not do so on its own turf. Chinese companies have not only shown little respect for the laws of India, but they are also known to cross the line into criminal activities, as was found in many Chinese fintech lenders, where they gave usurious loans, then resorted to goons for recovery, and later sent their illegal booty and collections abroad through hawala channels. Yet another crime that they have merrily indulged in is that of forgery of documents and identities to illegally establish an India presence, and that also needs heavy punishment. The third, for such violations and crimes, even an Indian company with Indian promoters would be stringently prosecuted and punished, and therefore Chinese companies are not being singled out as they may claim. India has a constitution and laws under it, unlike China, which is a country without a constitution. The fourth, it is China which is responsible for vitiating the atmosphere for Chinese companies in India, and so are its citizens who are desperate to do business in India and somehow enter the Indian market, even if it means setting up companies with forged papers, fake addresses, and bogus identities. The fifth, unlike China, India has an independent judiciary, and if the Enforcement Directorate and the Income Tax Department are wrong, then the companies can rush to the court and get relief, as Xiaomi got when its bank accounts were frozen and the Karnataka High Court ordered their immediate release so that its business operations are not harmed. Recourse to courts is always available in India, and even Vivo can do that in case it thinks that it has a case. The sixth, it is China's unprovoked military aggression and blatant disregard for bilateral treaties which has got it a near enemy status, not just in India but in many other nations worldwide, and it should consider itself lucky that its companies have not been totally banned in India from the Indian markets. And finally, even otherwise, every nation must be wary of Chinese companies, most of which are owned by the CPC and the PMLA and are known to dubiously promote their interests in the countries in which they operate in. The fact of the matter is that China is no one to give us any sermons about creating a fair, just, and non-discriminative business environment. A nation like China, whose government is utterly autocratic and which arbitrarily takes action against anyone that it perceives to be a threat to the ruling Communist Party, including its own companies, as we saw how it scuttled the $35 billion IPO of Jack Ma's Alibaba and sent him into hibernation, and how it cut its education and e-commerce companies to size for no tenable reason. This kind of a nation had better keep its sermons to itself. India certainly doesn't need them, neither are they justified. They cut no ice and they carry no credibility in India. In the meanwhile, as expected, the investigation agencies report utter non-cooperation by Vivo in their probes. The probe will continue. The law of the land has to reach its natural course, even if that means that the probe continues and many other agencies also join into it. This is Akhilesh Bhargava signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.